Welcome to Follow Your Curiosity. Ordinary people, extraordinary creativity. Here's how to get unstuck. I'm your host, creativity coach Nancy Norbeck. Let's go. 4 years ago, artist and art therapist Darcy Wade joined me to talk about her own journey with art and creativity, including how her discovery of expressive arts brought her back from a period of disconnection with her creative side and helped her recovery from addiction. Darcy has since moved from North Carolina to Colorado, where she's now undertaking fundraising efforts to help folks back home in the wake of the destruction from Hurricane Helene. She talks to me about the history and artistic culture of Western North Carolina, particularly Asheville, but also the surrounding area, the creativity, ingenuity, and community that arises from crisis, her journey from North Carolina to Colorado, how awe and wonder elevate our lives, and more. You'll find links to our previous conversation and Darcy's fundraiser in the show notes, and I hope you'll check them out. Here's my conversation with Darcy Wade. Darcy Wade, welcome back to Follow Your Curiosity.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
So it's been 4 years, which is kind of mind-boggling.
It's blowing my mind, truthfully.
I know.
4 is my favorite number, though, so that I don't believe in coincidences, but yeah, 4 years.
So a lot has happened in the last 4 years. And for people who missed your first conversation with me, I'll have a link in the show notes so that they can go catch up on that. But tell me what's going on with you now.
Yeah. So I remember when we had the first conversation, I mean, we were in COVID times. It was 2020. And I was still in Asheville, North Carolina. I am now in Denver, Colorado, and it's been a journey getting back there. Follow your creativity or your curiosity and creativity. I mean, that has been definitely the theme, trusting the process. I mean, just to kind of bullet point, moved out to Denver, Colorado, started, my professional career as a therapist with the focus of expressive arts and art therapy and nature-based expressive arts, which we had talked about. I almost feel like that first episode helped manifest a lot of that. I thought about that after the fact. And then, I was on a sober journey, not drinking and taking Adderall, which were my two, crutches and a lot of stimulants. And I did relapse after about 2.5 years. I thought it was like an intentional relapse. I thought I was doing it really carefully, but I've since learned that it was very much a real relapse. And that brought me back to Charlotte. And that was 2 years there, Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I'm from. And that was a hard journey being there. I was basically like couch surfing, living with my parents, living with friends, but I really tapped back into being an artist there, which I can talk more about later. And then I finally got the call, literally like the call from above, that I needed to put myself into treatment because my addiction had gotten really, really bad. And so I did that back in March of this year, 2024, and was there for about a month. And then that is actually what brought me back to Denver. I did sober living and I did like a outpatient treatment out here in Denver. They were like, oh, because the original residential place I went to was in South Carolina. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was just what I needed. And then they were like, so for aftercare, do you want to go to Denver, Colorado? I was like, yeah, that's been the plan the whole time. Let's do it. And so that's how I got back out here. And I am now officially art therapist, expressive arts therapist. We probably will talk more about this. I just experienced a really hard situation where I was working kind of my dream job as an art therapist for really at-risk youth out here, and found out my mother, I'm actually the one that caught this. My mother has been diagnosed with chronic leukemia, and that plus a lot of other things have caused I had to resign, which has been really, really hard. But kind of going along with follow your curiosity and trusting the process, I resigned the day before the hurricane hit down in North Carolina, Hurricane Helene. I think I'm saying that right. I always want to say Helen. And had that not happened and I had because I'm doing a fundraiser that I just did the numbers. We've raised already just in pre-sales about $7,000 that has directly gone back to the Western North Carolina population, who are a lot of my friends down there. Had not lost my job or been out here in Colorado, none of this would have happened. So yeah, there's my elevator pitch on the past 4 years.
Wow.
I know. I'm gonna try really hard not to cry through this, but also I accept any emotions because they're all so real.
That is a lot.
It's so much. Yeah.
It's a lot.
And a really big piece I just want to highlight while it's like coming to me is like the power of creativity and the power of community. Like creativity is what fuels our problem solving skills. Like my friends, like your friend, like our people down in Western North Carolina are literally surviving. Those who did survive the storm, many who did not, many lands who did not, many animals who did not. But the ones who are, they are being creative. They are working together in a community. They are fighting to save everybody they can. It's incredible and it's heartbreaking at the same time.
Isn't it interesting how we in Western culture tend to discount creativity and community until it's a life and death situation and we can't survive without either?
Yeah.
Because that's really what I'm hearing as you're saying this is, we know as human beings we're wired for both of these things, but we like to pretend that we're not and that we can get along with, not doing the creative thing because we've been told that that's not important and that we can just do everything ourselves, the whole rugged individualism thing until your house washes away.
Yep.
And then you can't, because actually that's not how humans are designed to work. And also just kind of not how nature works.
Yeah.
And then we find out that we need them both, literally, to survive.
100%. One thing that has always stuck with me that I learned when I was, studying expressive arts therapy, which was my main focus, that and somatics, for my clinical master's degree. I remember learning about how, like, indigenous and ancient cultures, like art and creativity was not separate. It was a part of everyday functioning. It was like while you cleaned, while you cooked, while you did anything, you were singing, you were dancing, you were like making things, you were craftsmanship. And so it's rooted in our lineages. And that's a huge part of like, this is like, as we are recording this right now, and you are an amazing person for being able to bump this up for the urgency, but like, it's just like a reminder of the importance of community and creativity. There was another point I was about to make, which it will come back to me. I just lost it. But yeah, I mean, all of what you said, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a shame we only remember it when it gets down to the brass tacks.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say is like right now, as we're filming this, is a lot of us who are directly connected to WNC, we really know what's going on. There's so much that has not been released that people outside don't know. But as a nation and globally, the Western North Carolina Appalachian culture is like where so much of our creativity and our arts and our lineage, it's the culture of America. America's a very young, nation, and our creatives have built a lot of this culture that we have as Americans. And that is very rooted in the Appalachian, Blue Ridge Mountain, Western North Carolina. And that's what has been literally and metaphorically kind of washed away. But the people on the ground right now and who are connected are fighting to keep that alive, along with a lot of humans. And so it's powerful, and it's a national wake-up call.
Yeah. It's a wake-up call in a lot of ways. I mean, Asheville is so far inland that no one ever expected anything like this to happen there because of a hurricane. So it's a climate thing.
100%, 1 in 1,000% chance of this happening. And this is where it's so important that this is getting out. Like, there's been a lot of people, mind you, I'm in Colorado. A lot of people out here don't even realize what's happening, or at least not to the extent. And people are like, well, why didn't people evacuate? I know, like, there are friends of mine and people I know that once they got the message to evacuate, the roads were gone. They couldn't, their cars were gone. It was so unpredicted to this level. And of course, we know that there's, destruction, Hurricane Milton down in Florida and other areas. And like, there's so much that's been affected. But like, the reason Western North Carolina WNC is so important to be aware of is like, it was a 1 in 1,000 chance of this happening. And it's home base, like it's getting closer to home and the reality, climate change, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big breaths.
Yeah.
Drink water. Using my, I said before we started filming, I literally have like my squashmallow behind me, my squishy like regulation ball in my hand. I have water with electrolytes, like taking care of ourselves first, taking care of our families, taking care of our community, and then we take care of the world.
Yeah. So you're so far away, but you have so many contacts at home.
Yeah.
So how are you? I mean, it must feel frustrating to be as far away as you are. And yet at the same time, it gives you resources that you wouldn't have if you were there to be helping out.
100%. I mean, like, as I have said, I'm kind of now forgetting what I said pre-recording to now, but it's okay. It all comes, it all's important. I lost my job as an I had to resign. I want to be really respectful in how I word that. I had to resign due to, finding out, I was the one that caught that my mother had chronic leukemia when she came out to visit me in Colorado, and the elevation brought the jaundice to the surface in her skin. And I knew what that was. And I immediately took her to the ER. We found out she has leukemia. I think she's had it for a while. And then just other things, I'm in recovery again. All these things led to where I was, the job as an art therapist. It was my dream job, still is, but it ended up being more dangerous in a lot of ways because of the population. It's really, really heartbreaking, like youth that have just like ended up in really bad situations. And yeah, I had to resign, but then I resigned literally like, it was like the day before the hurricane hit. And had I not had all this time off, it's been like 2-3 weeks since all this has happened. Feels like 2 weeks, 2 years, and 2 days all in one breath. But being out here in Colorado, and mind you, I was planning actually to move back to Asheville before I got myself into rehab. So I could have very easily been one of the artists down there impacted, but God took me out here to Colorado to get clean and sober. And then being out here without a job when everything hit, it allowed me to have internet access and just, I channeled my anxiety. Like those 2 days when we couldn't hear from everyone, like my partner is from Marion. His family's in Marion, North Carolina. So like we were watching this from when it hit. And there was like at least 2 days, maybe even more, where we hadn't heard from everyone. We didn't know who was alive. And I was channeling so much of my anxiety into, this drawing of 2 hands holding North Carolina with a heart over where Western North Carolina is. And I immediately just was like, we need to make money. We need to do things with this. And I just reached out. Mind you, every time I've done things like this in the past, it's all been Asheville-based artists and screen printers. So I'm having to build community out here in Denver, trying to network, trying to figure things out and get this fundraiser going. And as of today, we have raised $7,000 that we have donated back to the WNC community. And that's just in pre-sales. So yeah, being out here and the luxury of not being impacted directly, but still being affected by it definitely helped this fundraiser get going. And that's been a huge, huge thing, especially just highlighting the power of art and creativity and just following your curiosity.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I somehow haven't drank this whole time.
I mean, that's a major accomplishment. And I can't imagine. You mentioned an intentional relapse before, which is something I'd never heard of, but I can't imagine, thinking it was one thing and realizing it was something else and what that must do to you psychologically, and then,
Mm.
you know, going and dealing with it the way you did, and then all of this stuff on top of that, and how that influences you and your art and your drive to do something in this moment too.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking about that in the our first episode together of how through all the ups and downs, the good moments, the bad moments, the years where I just felt so lost. And those still happen. We're human. It's a wave we are all learning to ride. And I art and creativity has always been the baseline, the grounding force to help me navigate the turbulence when the waves just get too overwhelming. And I just can't. And I think that's where like my heart is just shattered for, at this point. Yes, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, but I lived in Western North Carolina for 2 decades. And that's where I got like most of my drive and my ambition as an artist. And just knowing that so many, not only like just people impacted, like losing so much, but losing like the original like art um being swept away. Like I'm just picturing that on top of just everything else. But yeah, I mean, what a powerful time I will say to be a creative because we are needed and it's necessary.
Yeah. And I've never been to Asheville, but my friend who's there lived there for a while, and then she briefly moved up to, I think it was Massachusetts. And I'm not even sure that she stayed there for a whole year because she missed Asheville so much that
Yeah.
she moved back maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And now, she's dealing with the aftermath of all of this. But I have a feeling, I haven't really talked to her because of the whole situation, but I have a feeling that if I asked her if she regrets moving back, she'd still say no.
100%. Well, that's the other thing too, is like, yeah, I'm out in Denver and that's kind of because I have to be like my professional mental health, clinical mental health licensure is out here in Colorado. And I looked into trying to transfer it. And just because of like reciprocity between state to state, I have to be out here for a couple more years to be able to move back. But the plan is like I've always wanted to move back to Western North Carolina. Once again, heartbreaking. The reality, like my dream home is like in the mountains, kind of more secluded, right next to a river. These are the places I got swept away. And I'm just like, very grateful to, God, my sobriety, just like myself for following, the curiosity that led me out here to be able to be safe right now. But like, yeah, I mean, in the bigger picture, this is a huge like loss and many, many, many steps backwards for our art community, for Western North Carolina, just for so many people. And yeah, fighting the good fight because that is home.
So for those of us who haven't been to Asheville, what is it about Asheville that makes it so special and different from other places?
I mean, the artist, it's such a hub for artists, creatives, musicians. A lot of those are specifically what my fundraiser, and I'll provide you links so that you can link
Hmm.
that the show notes. But there's such a creative atmosphere there. It's like the phrase of Asheville. I remember when I first moved there, it's like keep Asheville weird. And it was just, of course it's like grown into a lot of breweries, which a lot of those people are friends too. And the mountains, oh my gosh, like the Blue Ridge Mountains, like that, because I lived in Boone, I worked in Old Fort. That's where I did wilderness therapy. And that's one of the areas that got like completely washed away. Swannanoa, like my mother, like this brings tears to my eyes every time, but the Swannanoa music gathering in Swannanoa is an incredible collection of musicians who meet every year. And it's right there in Swannanoa on the Warren Wilson campus. And I haven't even been able to look, but Swannanoa is like gone. And
Oof.
that breaks my heart because my mother wasn't able to go this year, even though she had tickets because of her leukemia. And we kept saying next year, next year. And that's the heart-wrenching thing people need to realize is like it's going to take so long for this all to recover if it can recover. Like the lands are hurting. But yeah, I mean, Asheville, I know they're trying to still open. I know there's a lot of places in the surrounding Western North Carolina who, because of their resiliency, they are open and like there's artists there, there's musicians there. Like they want people to come and support. They need that. And we're just like, helping, crossing our fingers for places like Asheville and Black Mountain and Lake Lure, Lake Lure, that's where Dirty Dancing was filmed. Like those places got demolished. And that's a lot of, like I said, our art culture in this nation.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing because Dirty Dancing was set in the Catskills in New York, and yet.
And they filmed a lot of the scenes like around that lake. It was in Lake Lure. And I'm like 99.9% sure I'm right on all this. I mean, out full transparency, like I know I'm dysregulated and I know I'm exhausted. I have a huge exam I'm studying for tomorrow for my licensure that I have to pass. It's like $300 if I don't and all these other things. But like, it's hard to keep track of it all. I think the most important thing for anyone listening, thank you. It's like do the research, listen to the locals. It's hard for a lot of us who have just been, and I'm speaking as someone who's not even down there, but like there's so much information going on. So like, fact check, but I'm doing the best I can with this little brain.
Just for clarity, I'm not saying that you're wrong about the Dirty Dancing thing. That kind of stuff happens all the time, that it's, set in one place but filmed in another. But, never would have occurred to me that it would have been filmed in North Carolina, though I'm sure they found a place and said, well, this looks enough like, upstate New York somewhere. So, because that's what they do.
I like remember my dad telling me when we went there one time for a family trip, but yeah, I mean, just that whole area, it's magic. It's beautiful. And yeah, here I am in Denver, which is equally as beautiful, the Front Range, the Rocky Mountains, but like such a connect and so much influence. I'm pretty sure, and this definitely, like, I hope I'm saying this right. I'll fact check myself after the fact, but like, I'm pretty sure like the Appalachian, like the French Broad River is one of the oldest rivers in the world. And that's one of the rivers that I got up to like 25 to 30 feet in a lot of areas like Marshall, North Carolina, where that's a huge hub for herbalists, artists, musicians, farmers, so much. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's so much. We don't have to talk the whole thing about the event too, but it's important and it definitely is a big focus. But like, yeah, I mean, as an artist, this is impacting all of us.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that really, when I have heard people talk about Asheville, that's always what I've heard about. It's kind of like when you hear about Austin, Texas, which I also haven't been to, and they also say, keep Austin weird. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of vibe. It's, you hear about Asheville and it's always in an artsy kind of context. So it does seem like, kind of like Asheville, Nashville,
Yeah.
very artsy kind of communities that have built themselves up around that. And so it's not the only reason to support them in the wake of a hurricane, but it's an extra reason to say, hey, this is a real cultural enclave. And so, yeah, we want to help people get back in their houses, but we also want to help support the artists that have been affected by, potentially losing their work and losing their studio space, losing their musical space, their instruments, their, whatever it is that they're using for their particular art, and helping them to get it back, especially if it's their livelihood.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm thinking right now, and I'm really bad with like name pronunciation, so just like prefacing that I might butcher names, but I'm pretty sure. But like my friend Jerry, I know how to say the word Jerry. But his last name, Cahill, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. He is one of the founders of RAD Printworks. RAD stands for River Arts District. They are who printed my shirts for during like COVID, the Black Lives Matter, all the protests. I did a fundraiser, my first fundraiser for the Racial Justice Coalition. Like, and Jerry's one of the ones, and his partner at RAD, Matt, they printed my shirts, and they lost everything. Like River Arts District in Asheville is like no more. It's amazing the things that did survive. Like my friends who are potters, I'm seeing them posting pictures of like little pots that made it and all these things. There's such a metaphor in that. But Jerry has been working directly with Beloved Asheville. And Beloved Asheville is an amazing organization that's been around for as long as I have known of Asheville, probably even longer, that really focuses on the homeless population, the addicted population. I mean, that in itself, like I immediately knew, not to be too morbid, but the death toll was going to be really bad in this area because of all those who, yeah, in the Appalachian Mountains, there's a lot of addiction, a lot of homelessness. Those people, unfortunately, yeah, I mean, I don't even need to say more about that. But Jerry and Beloved and the Rad Printworks River Arts District group, they have been literally the ones, like, even though they lost everything, they've been nonstop on the grounds in Asheville doing things that you would never expect, like going into these territories, into the smaller areas of the mountains that people are stuck and stranded. And it's been like, 2-3 weeks, elders who have not been able to flush their toilet because there's no running water, there's nothing. And they've been going in and like bringing them water they call it gray water, to help them flush things and to clean. Like, it's just, and so it's like, these are artists. Like at this point, they are like the professionals. Like I have friends working with FEMA. I have friends, working with all the different organizations, but like these are artists in the area who they could have left. And a lot of people did because they had to. And I just want to be really careful in saying that anyone who had to like retreat and go elsewhere just to like take care of themselves, that's really important. Every single piece of this puzzle is important. But a lot of those who stayed, the artists, the musicians, the locals, the business owners, the nonprofit owners, they are fighting to save their own. And they don't really know what they're doing, but that's the power of following your curiosity and the creative process and problem solving. And they are saving lives, and they have been nonstop. It's a remarkable.
Yeah, it's amazing what necessity being the mother of invention. What you can come up with when you have to. And I'm really glad that they're finding ways to support folks like that.
Yeah. I saw someone post this, and it's so true. It's like this area, I think, doesn't get a lot of credit too, but it's a lot of survivalists. It's a lot of like, this is where I worked wilderness therapy in Old Fort, North Carolina. And a lot of people who live there, like they choose to live in a little bit more of like secluded mountain area, but they know how to survive. And it's the power of community of like, yeah, people have prepared, they have like kept supplies, but everyone's sharing with everyone, and that's beautiful too. So there's a lot of good. The quote that sticks with me right now is like, I might butcher this, but essentially it's, life is both beautiful and tragic, and we have to pay attention to both.
Yeah, I think there's wisdom in that for sure. And not just when tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
It's in every moment.
Yeah. Gratitude. I mean, that's, and I can kind of like do a natural segue just into kind of like what's been happening in my life behind the scenes in the past 4 years. But like, just trying to like go back to the roots, like, the whole nature-based expressive arts, which I'm pretty sure I talked about that in this episode. Yeah.
Yep.
Just, it's not even just about learning how to survive, not only in this world, but in our natural world. And like, we are humans, we are animals too. And appreciating nature, this has stuck with me a lot too. And this, I think, just paints a picture, paints a picture of maybe how my mentality is through all this. It's like, yes, we honor and we grieve all those who lost their lives in this catastrophe and all the other catastrophes that are happening in the world. But at the same time, Mother Nature spared a lot. Like, I can speak for myself. I know a lot of people in Western North Carolina, and every person I know personally survived. And that's the power of like yeah, like their resiliency, but I also just really trust nature. And even if it doesn't make sense in the moment, it's it's bigger than us. It's a bigger thing to comprehend, but Mother Nature is wise and also is hurting because of what humans have been doing. But I know that's been a really big guiding for like my recovery journey, especially round two and just being an artist. Like a lot of my art still revolves around just like nature, listening to nature, trusting the process. And it's helping me regulate as I grip my little stress ball like crazy. Oy.
Yeah, I remember being really fascinated with your nature and wilderness therapy work before. So I'm curious to know, like, I mean, how did you, I'm assuming that you still work in that way in Colorado. Like how is it different out there? Have you had different opportunities to expand it, to explore it differently?
Yeah, I mean, since we last talked, I did end up starting a private practice, which technically is still operating. I mean, well, it's still active. I'll say that. I'm not working through it right now just for like ethical boundaries. I'm still in recovery. I'm trying to be very ethical about what I do. And so, but my private practice that I started, I think it was in 2021, based in Boulder, Colorado, and it's called Heart of Earth Healing. It's not going to be helpful to look that up because I've made everything private, but it was like the concept of like the word art is in both heart and earth. And I don't believe in
Hmm.
coincidences. And then the focus for me, and I had a lot of success with this. It was really hard to end this, but I knew I had to go back home to North Carolina and pause. But I was seeing clients out, like we would go on like walks around some of the like beautiful lakes out here in Colorado. We would meet at the foot of like Chautauqua, which is like the Front Range, beautiful mountainscape in Boulder. I definitely hosted a lot of groups, I like nature-based expressive arts groups, and it's so fun. And I'm planning to do more. It's just beginning. We just took a pause. Yeah, that is like soul food for me, like for my heart, 100%.
Are you still working with a lot of kids?
Mhm. I'm gonna try to get through this without crying. Oh, it's so hard. Yeah, I mean, I worked at a really amazing place called Denver Children's Home, and we are in very good relations. They were really taking care of me. It was hard to see in the moment, but it was like I needed to resign to take care of myself. And they saw that. But for the 4 months I was able to work there, until honestly my health just kind of got in the way and everything else. Yeah, our main population is kids right here from Colorado who really grew up with not a lot of family, if any, and a lot of them ended up in gangs. And it's just fighting to find that sense of community. And because of that, a lot of the kiddos, and I have to be very careful about what I share
Hmm.
and I'm honestly not going to share any names or anything. Absolutely not. That would be big no.
Right.
Like it's like kids that just got into really bad situations because they were young and they now have charges against them. And it's kind of like going to different children's home is their attempt to try to like do get not in the system, not go immediately to jail. And it's so hard. But yeah, those were the kids that I was working with and doing art therapy specifically with. I was hired as an art therapist. I those kids are amazing. And I was starting to like connect a lot of things to be able to like do things in the garden. We had an amazing community garden there. And so really trying to get the nature element to them. And there's still hope. Like I have full faith that this will all be connected later when I have the capacity. But yeah, I mean, I love working with the kids. And I do have another job lined up, and that's why this exam I'm taking tomorrow is so important because I have to pass that to get to the next stage of my licensure to be able to get this job. But this new job, like they're giving me free range. Like it's basically doing a private practice, but through like a company. And yeah, I mean, I want to continue working with the youth. anyone, honestly, who is curious about how creativity and nature can just really help, because that is truly what has allowed me to be like alive today, honestly. Um, and I just want to share what wisdom I have gained and continue to gain. And I really love working with the kids. Yeah.
Do kids take really easily to art therapy? Because I have to imagine that they do probably more than adults do.
They do. They do. And I remember specifically this one kid, I want to say he was like 15 and he had just gotten there. And I think the art therapy group I was leading was one of his first like entrances into, our program. And I remember like trying to like hand him like paint stuff. And he's like, I've never painted before. And I was like, whoa. And like by like group 3, he loved it and was like already saying how his favorite type of painting art was abstract art. And it was like watching these kids who a lot of them didn't really have a childhood because they were like in survival mode from the get-go. Watching them just like reconnect with their childlike wonder, which is a huge part of like the creative process and the curiosity behind that. Like it's powerful, it's medicine. I like bringing the focus back to like Western North Carolina. I'm so like amazed and just like my heart lights up when I see all these videos being posted by my friends of groups sitting together by candlelight, singing to each other and dancing and just like painting. And it's like, that's the artist way.
Yeah, and you mentioned wonder, and wonder and awe really fascinate me because I think that they're kind of, what's the word? They're kind of hard to pin down, you know? They're hard to describe. If you have a really awe-inspiring experience or moment, it's hard to explain it to somebody else. So it's kind of difficult to connect with somebody who wasn't actually there. Like if somebody else was there with you, then you don't have to explain it to them, and it's great because then you just kind of
Yeah.
you were there, and you have that connection and you don't need words, and yay. But if somebody
Big
else
thumbs up.
wasn't there, you
Yeah.
you trip all over yourself, kind of like I'm doing right now, and it's really hard to communicate it,
Yes.
whether that's going to see Bruce Springsteen on the beach in Asbury Park like he
That
did
was
a
my
couple
first
of weeks
concert ever
ago.
as a kid, by the way.
you know,
Anyway, go ahead.
or like seeing a fabulous sunset over, the mountains in New Zealand or something like that. It doesn't really matter what it was. It's equally difficult to explain to somebody else. A photo or a recording is not the same as having been there. But
Yeah.
it's something. Your awe-inspiring experience probably still felt the same way to you as my awe-inspiring experience, even if it was a completely different thing. I don't know. It just fascinates me because I think that it's this feeling that is important somehow, but that the English language really lets us down. We don't have good words for it. We know what it is, but we can't talk about it easily. But I don't know.
Mhm.
It's important. I don't know what you
You
think.
are
Help me out
you
here.
are preaching to the choir. I know that those listening, because this is just audio, like I'm sitting here just nodding because like you are I have been where you are so many times trying to just explain what expressive arts therapy is to
Mm.
people. Like, I don't know, just come do it.
Yeah,
Like, I
right?
promise
Like it's
you won't walk
hard.
away unhappy. It's so hard. And that's the power too of like the creative process, especially when it comes to healing. I mean, essentially it's synonymous. Like creativity is healing. For the most part, when people are tapping into their creative power, it is in turn healing them in some way. And then trying to explain that though to people who haven't tapped in. Oh my gosh, like shout out to the movie Soul. Have you seen
Oh
that?
yeah.
Oh my God, like
What a
the
great
spark.
movie.
It's so good and such a great way to explain exactly the concept we're talking about, which is essentially expressive arts therapy. It's just expression, tapping into that ancestral, that like deep rooted a blessing being human is we were given thumbs, which means that we are allowed to create with these thumbs. Obviously, my heart goes out to a lot of like those who are like disabled. And that was a huge population I actually worked with in Asheville. Shout out Open Hearts Art Center. That's a huge place that like I've been directly donating to because I worked there for basically the whole time I was in Asheville. And we worked with artists in the Western North Carolina community who had like a bunch of different, yes, disabilities, but the correct term is differences. And,
Mm-hmm.
I remember working with a woman who didn't have access to her hand. She had cerebral palsy, but I helped her translate writing and write a book and amazing things like that. And it's hard to explain. And that's where, like, when we are able to capture it into words like this podcast, that's where I've always loved this whole premise of what you're doing. And I've wanted to stay connected because it's important. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you just can't find the words, and that's where you let the art talk for you.
Yeah. As we've been talking, I'm remembering that the late great Roger Ebert, the film critic, wrote a piece one time about elevation, is what he called it. Is that moment when you're watching the movie and you get the goosebumps because something amazing is happening. And he may have had a way of putting it into words. I'm going to find it and I'll put a link to it in the show notes because I remember reading that piece maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago and thinking, oh yeah, that's that moment when like you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up when you're in the movie and you just have this moment and you might start to cry and and not every experience of awe or wonder makes you cry or makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up or whatever. But I think there's some crossover there, but maybe it's just feeling like there's something bigger than you happening. I don't know.
There it is. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's weird. It's not weird because I really just trust that we're on the same wavelength right now. I think a lot of us creatives are because surprise, if you haven't noticed, like it's like the world's on fire everywhere right now. And it's really hard. I mean, it's really hard. Everyone's dealing with something and, mad respect for just pushing through one day at a time. But like, yeah, I mean, creativity in itself, and I think this is where I've always like used it as my lifeline, like my anchor in this world, is because it does in turn connect you with just the bigger picture, the greater community, to God, spirit, to Mother Earth, to like whatever human language feels right for you. It connects you to that bigger energy, which gives us hope. It gives us faith. And without that, what is the point of this whole human experience?
Yeah. Yeah. Not to
Shout
leave
out
everybody going, oh, it's all pointless. That's not what we're saying. But yeah, there's something that, connects us to stuff that's bigger than us. I actually, there was a book, there's a guy named Dr. Keltner who's some kind of psychologist out at Berkeley, I think. And he released a whole book called Awe last year. So he's obviously got lots and lots of words for awe. And
like
it was
AW?
AWE.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting read. But he divides it into different categories, like, group movement and, all sorts of stuff. But now I wish I had read it more recently. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that can elevate the immediate moment. And he talked a lot about like everyday awe, which I don't think we think about all the time. We think about, the sunset over the mountains or the Bruce Springsteen concert on the beach or, the big things that we think about and that, we separate into these elevated moments. But, there are these ordinary moments. I was just thinking the other day about a student that I had once when I was teaching. I taught ESL kids, and a lot of people told me that they couldn't do creative writing. And I was like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Just because English is their second language, you think they can't write a poem? I mean, what you expect them to write an essay for their English class, but you think they can't write a poem?
And it always comes down to someone down the line told them they couldn't because of whatever their experience is. And that's where we come in and say, yes, you can.
Yes, you can. And my kids regularly wrote all sorts of stuff, and we, would put it in the literary magazine. And one of my kids wrote a poem that ended up in the literary magazine, and the school chaplain at the end of the year asked him to read it at the final chapel service. And he got up and read it. I'm like, yeah, really? So you want to tell me again how ESL kids can't write poetry, can't do creative writing? Because that one just did, and he's not the only one. That's a moment of everyday awe,
It literally brings tears to my eyes every time, because like this is, for all the like mothers out there, fathers out there, just like even adopted parents, like our youth is our future, as we know. I mean, I don't have kids my own, but obviously like I love being around children and working with children. And there's so much wisdom to gain from basically everyone in that younger, like a little bit more naive, they're still kind of in that wall. That was me trying to combine wonder and awe. They're in that, they're just in that, childlike, just seeing the world with a really fresh perspective. And I try to tap into that a lot, especially when I'm out hiking, when I'm doing art. Just every process, I'm trying to like see it from like, okay, what am I actually experiencing without all of the other noise and chatter that's happening and all of the different like, you know, things that have happened throughout my life that have told me, no, I can't, or not good enough, or all the things. And it's like, this is when we rewrite, that is a tongue twister, those neuro pathways. Like, speaking as a clinical therapist, I worked in neuro. I've done a lot of my own work. I put myself in treatment, did a lot of brain spotting, did a lot of EMDR, all the things. Like, we have the ability to rewire our brain and rewire these connections that are telling us we can't, and to not go there, to not follow the curiosity, to not try to do this, to not try to do that. I think what is really being highlighted with what's happening in Western North Carolina right now after the hurricane is the power of the creatives, especially in crisis, the power of the quote unquote hippies. I remember we laughed about this when I was trying to explain expressive arts in episode 1 when we did this. It's like, we're kind of seeing now that like this culture and this way of life is really, really sustainable, and it's grounding. I mean, they literally overcame, a majority of them overcame and survived a major catastrophic, in quotes, this is how it's been said, biblical level catastrophic once in a lifetime event. And they are just showing us the power of that deep-rooted resiliency that comes from being a creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to what you were saying a minute ago about, listening to all the messages that say, no, you can't do that. You shouldn't be this way. You should, do this other thing. That's literally why I'm launching a course called Make Bad Art. To get people out of, making bad art goes literally against the grain, because everybody believes that if you're going to make art, you have to make good art. Well, how do you think you get to make good art?
Yeah.
Nobody starts out making good art.
Yeah.
Guarantee you the first time you try to make any kind of art, whether it's taking a photo or, drawing or writing something, it's going to be bad. Mm-hmm. And if you judge yourself on your first effort, you will never make a second effort. Mm-hmm. But if you sit down and you deliberately make bad art, then you say, oh, look, I made some bad art. Maybe I'll make some more because that was fun.
I love that. I love that so much. And I would even like, taking it like a step further. I mean, this is where my creative brain and my expressive arts brain is like seeing the beauty in this process of like, once you realize the power of what has been deemed quote unquote bad art, you see it's not necessarily bad. It's more of just like not maybe accepted. And okay, so who got to have the rights to tell us what is and isn't accepted in the art world? And I know, and this was a huge thing we talked about in my first episode, was like how blocked and like defeated I felt when I was kind of being told that my art was not good and things like that when I was in college. And that whole story, I actually weirdly re-listened to that episode. I got called to re-listen to it like not long before you had tagged me. So this is all just like so synchronistic and I love it. But I was like remembering just how hard that was for me as someone who is an artist who had always been told throughout my life I was so good at art. Mind you, I was not really good at a lot of other things. I've grown, I've learned, but art was always my thing. And as someone who even had that foundation, the one, two, three handful of times that I was told my art wasn't good stuck with me in such a
Right.
way. And that's where we are. I love your course. I just already love the sound of it and I will happily help promote it because like getting people to realize that quote unquote the bad art is where the magic happens because that's where you're the most vulnerable and real and you're doing it for you and not anyone else. I love it.
Yeah. And it gets you out of what other people tell you about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh,
Yeah. So
beautiful.
it lets
Beautiful.
you be yourself. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why I'm so excited about it. Because so many people, even if they're, we all get all of these messages about who we're supposed to be. Well, what about who you want to be?
Yeah. And you know what? I even have it right here. You know who I've learned? Yes, I'm an artist and I'm a human, but you know what I want to be? I want to be a good person. Like that's literally like slogan.
She's
This
got
is
a
actually
hat that says "Be a good person" on it.
yeah, I'm showing her it. It's my like it's literally like my like emotional support hat. Um, but this is actually a company here in Denver. It's really tragic. I think it actually, and I might have to fact check this too, but I think it started during the COVID time. I know that it was kind of founded. It might have already been around actually, but where it really got highlighted and when I learned about it was um, a really innocent individual was shot and killed from I think it was a gang thing. And then, they're utilizing their platform, be a good person to just raise awareness about all that stuff. And to just remind people that at the end of the day, when you're still trying to figure out who you are, you can be a good person. And that comes in all shapes and sizes, but that's also how we all come. And it's all about like what you're feeling in your heart and the altruism and like the just authenticity. And I'll speak from just what I'm seeing with my fundraiser. Like I'm literally not keeping a penny. And that's hard because I don't have a job right now. It's really hard. We are constantly being sort of like tempted with all these, things that maybe aren't the best choice. But every time you choose the right choice, you choose the be a good person choice, more magic happens and it ends up like expanding tenfold. And it's always worth it in the end. Always.
Yeah. Well, and my instinctive reaction to be a good person is that probably the person you really want to be is the person you are deep down inside.
Yep.
That doesn't always come out because you're influenced by all of these other things that are telling you buy this thing or be this person or this other person's more perfect than you. But all of the famous exercise is like, who are the people that you idolize and why do you idolize them? And those qualities are the qualities that you probably already have that you don't acknowledge in yourself. I mean, I think that's true. I think that the person that you want to be is what's really deep down, or you wouldn't want to be that. And the things that get in the way are things that aren't really you. They're external factors that make it harder to live up to that.
100%. I can speak from my own experience, like to anyone who's listening that is or has gone through addiction of any kind, like I will always refer to myself as an addict because at the end of the day, like that is how my system is like formed and I know this and that's a beautiful awareness that I now have and I'm able to like accept and move forward with that and not see it as like a something that's holding me back. It's more of like if someone had an allergy, like I'm allergic to something. Okay. Like I'm allergic to alcohol. Like literally, like if I drink it, it does not do good things to my psyche or to my body. And that doesn't mean it's everyone, but yeah, like even though I have struggled with addiction my whole life and it's a forever long process, I'm someone who still struggle with anxiety. I'm definitely like a neurodivergent individual. I'm an adult person who is just now kind of coming to terms with all the hidden disabilities. Shout out to like the sunflower. I use that a lot. It's like my symbol right now because I learned when I was, experiencing having to help fly my mother after we learned her diagnosis back from Colorado. I had to help fly her to North Carolina. It took like a week to get her to that point because the elevation was messing with her hemoglobin levels. And sunflower is a symbol, at least in airports and a lot of other systems, of like, hey, there are hidden disabilities that you may not notice on the outside.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I get chills every time about that because I I literally dressed as a sunflower when I was taking my mother to the airport the first time, the first attempt when the doctor said that she was stable, quote unquote. And I thought I lost her in my arms just in the checkout line to try to get our tickets. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. It was scary. I was dressed in a yellow sweater. I had this little I had glitter all over my face. I don't know why. I just felt called to do that. It's a God thing. I had this little like green, like like flower looking thing poking out. And I also had just gotten trained TCI, which is therapeutic crisis intervention. I had just gotten trained that like the week before. And I was able, and mind you, this was when there was like some kind of technology crisis in the airports where there was understaffing, as there always is. And when my mother went down in my arms, and I think she was in and out, it was really scary. I'm not even gonna go into that, but like with all my hidden disabilities, I channeled and just knew. And I was like, this is what needs to happen to get my mother into a hospital and be safe. And I channeled that. And I guess my long way of saying is like, even if you're someone who's doubting who you are because you've been told your whole life that you're not good enough, that you're too addicted to things, you're not strong enough, you're weak, you're too sensitive, all the things I've been told so many times, it is what builds your character if you just learn to accept and love it and work with it and not work against it and just be curious. That's a huge, huge follow your curiosity, be a good person, listen to your body and just trust yourself and don't give up because like that's what helped me. I don't want to sound too like presumptuous or egotistical to say this, but I do think I helped save my mother's life a few times. And I think it was all of the above that I just stated that helped me be the person I am today to be able to do this. And that's definitely like what is fueling me right now to be able to just like put my all into this fundraiser to help my friends back in WNC. So yeah, every flaw does help in the end.
Yeah. Well, and we are all flawed. And I love what you said about acceptance because, if you fight the flaws, you're just diluting yourself more. Whereas if you accept the flaws, they just become part of you and they help you become more comfortable in your own skin rather than less.
Being human is so interesting.
Isn't it? But there's
It
no
is
two ways about it. No matter what you do, you're still going to be human.
One day at a time. That's my favorite, forever my favorite, like recovery, AA slogan. One day at a time. Trust the process.
Yeah.
Grateful. Have faith. Stay, don't do it alone. Ask for help. All the things. Hashtag all the things.
Well, before we go, I want to make sure that you get a solid chance to tell us in detail exactly what this fundraiser is and how we can find it and what we can do to help out.
Yes. So the fundraiser is directly supporting Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. Thank you. I always say it wrong.
It's my grandmother's name, so it's easy.
Oh, that makes it doesn't like make sense in my brain when I read it. But yeah, so after the hurricane, there was outrageous devastation. I mean, this whole area of our nation has just been like almost completely demolished. But there are people down there, my friends, our friends, who are fighting the good fight and helping, and they have lost a lot. So this fundraiser is directly supporting them. I'm literally like basically just being a channel. As when I get donations in, I'm filtering them back out. And we've raised 7,000, as I've said, and it is helping. I have really put in a lot of work on my social media platforms. So Darcy Wade Art is kind of like my overarching platform for everything. That's my website, www.darcywadeart.com. My handle on Instagram is Darcy Wade Art. All the things, but then even my personal Instagram, I made public and it's more of like a blog. It's more complicated because it has a lot of like dots and underline things because it's D Wade. It's harder to find, but I'm trying really hard to post their daily updates about where donations are going to, updates about what's really happening down there, just amplify the voices of my people down in Western North Carolina, our people who are not being heard, and at the same time trying to raise money to send to them. It's shirts, stickers, prints. I'm going to be releasing, I hope, hoodies and mugs and maybe even like stress balls, like just really like things that people need when they're in crisis, also in the mountains when it's cold, when they have nothing. So every single cent is going to help this project help others.
You mentioned prints. Is that prints of your own work?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, I actually just started a raffle as well that's going to be going until Halloween. And it's $5 to enter, and you can enter as many times as you want. Every $5 gets your name into this pot. And essentially the winner is going to win a free custom anything you want drawing by me. That's kind of my specialty. And you can find that under commission work on my website. But then anything I raise from that, I'm going to be donating. And then also on the side, like I definitely am still taking commission orders. I'm donating 20% of any commission orders directly back to WNC, but also these are great holiday gifts. And I am going to be releasing soon, kind of almost like a catalog to my newsletter. So if you're interested, like subscribe, it's right on my website. There'll be a catalog of all the different items, both for the fundraiser and just my own personal art that you can buy. And it's great for holiday gifts.
Well, and I asked because if you haven't seen Darcy's artwork, it is absolutely stunning. So this is a great opportunity to get some and do some good with the money at the same time. And we'll definitely have links to all of the social outlets and Darcy's website, and who may even throw some artwork photos into the show notes, the fuller show notes on my website, so that you can check it out there and you can check it out at her website. But seriously, it's beautiful stuff. So if you're looking for something pretty to hang on your wall, this is a great opportunity to do some good at the same time. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me on here. This was really important and very special, and I'm just so grateful.
That's our show for this week. I'm so grateful to Darcy Wade for joining me and for her determination to help the Asheville area recover from Hurricane Helene. I hope you'll check out what she's doing and help out. If you enjoyed this episode or know someone else who'd like to participate, please do share the episode. Thank you so much. If this episode resonated with you, or if you're feeling a little bit less than confident in your creative process right now, join me at The Spark on Substack as we form a community that supports and celebrates each other's creative courage. It's free, and it's also where I'll be adding programs for subscribers and listeners. The link is in your podcast app, so sign up today. See you there, and see you next week. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners.